you ever heard of him. Thank you. Well, I'm going to always get the job done in America and for America. And one thing we always will do, and we've got to do now, because for 50 years we haven't done it, we will always put America first. It's time for us to put America first. We did it 4 years ago, I can tell you. We were energy independent 4 years ago. Can you believe it? With the lowest energy prices, everything was the best. And that's why they compare this with what it was, and people like us. We had the greatest economy in history of our country, and we did well. And by the way, I'm just looking as far as the eye can see, long beyond the fake news. That's a lot of cameras back there. But long beyond the fake news. Look at all the, you can't even see. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. Unbelievable. Thank you. You know, I always like to move the fake news way back. And I figure they have cameras that can do it, but that's the maximum they can do. They say that's the, I don't think it is, but they say that's the max, because I would have moved them way the hell to the back, up to me. Because they block the view. They're blocking the view of these people. They block the view of all those people. But you know, this is like a poll. And you have 50,000 people here, 50,000 people. And you know, that is a lot. If we get just the people here to vote, I think we win. I think we win. With your vote in this election, we can seal our borders, we can reclaim our sovereignty, stop inflation, raise your incomes, rebuild our devastated communities, and launch a new golden age of American prosperity and pride. That's what we're going to do. It's going to be American prosperity and American pride. But with 4 more years of Kamala Harris, your long nightmare is just beginning. Remember the word. Somebody said, give me one word to describe your opponent, Kamala Harris. You know what I said? Incompetent. I said, she's incompetent. She shouldn't be in the position. In all fairness, I'm no fan of his, but we had him totally beat. We had the debate, he was gone, and we were 20, 21 points up. And they walked in and they did a coup. It was a coup of a guy that got 14 million votes. She got none. She was the first one out. You know, she ran against him. He won. He got 14 million votes. He won. There were 22 people. She was the first one out. She never made it to a great place called Iowa. We love Iowa, the farmers. We love Iowa. But she never made it. She never made it to Iowa. And then all of a sudden, we're running against her. So they had 12 people plus her, and they wanted to be politically correct, and they picked her. And I don't know. I actually think if it keeps going like this, like we're doing, because they said she'd have a 6-week honeymoon, and she did. She had a little bit of a honeymoon period. You know, they went from, the fake news went from calling her horrible, the worst vice president, a total disaster, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything, to being wonderful. She's wonderful. Soon, the fake news. You know, they have the fake news as their partner, and we have a little news, but our news is peanut. And I never understood why they'd want this, why the fake news would want it, other than they hate our country, because I can't understand. Why do they want open borders? Why do they want sex change operations for people that are too young to even think about it? Why do they want men playing in women's sports, you know? Because we actually are now the party of common sense. I think that's what I like calling us now, right? Party of common sense. But with her in office, inflation will soar. You see where she's working on inflation? Nowhere where she has no idea what she's talking about. She's working on, I will work on inflation. Why didn't you do it again 4 years ago? Why didn't you do it again? You know, my theme with her is, why didn't you do it again? But why didn't you do it then? Why didn't you do it 4 years ago? Why wouldn't you have done this stuff? You want to do this stuff. They want open borders. So now they gave it a little bit of a closure, so the numbers look a little bit better than they did. The damage is done. We got 21 million people in here. We have 647,000 criminals released from jails and insane asylums, released into our country. The damage is done. But you say, how could you be talking about the future? The damage is done. They've got to be talking about getting these criminals immediately out of our country. We have to talk about that, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it rapidly. Why didn't she do it 4 years ago? The economy will crash, your borders will be permanently erased, your towns will be ravaged, and our country will never, ever be able to recover from this disaster. We're going to recover fast, but if you go 4 more years, you may never recover. In fact, I will say, some people say it, I think it's very severe, but I can understand it. Some people say you'll never have an election again. This would be your last election. And I can see it. Remember, I used to say we'll be Venezuela on steroids. And that's sort of what's happening. We're Venezuela on steroids. And we're buying a lot of Venezuela oil. How about this? We foreclosed on his old, broken little plane, the dictator, the head. We foreclosed on his plane, but we buy billions of dollars of oil. Can you imagine that? It should be the opposite way, really, shouldn't it? You know, we took his plane away, but we give him billions of dollars a month in oil. Can you believe it? We're buying oil from Venezuela, and we have more liquid gold under our feet than any other country in the world, and it's good. And they don't have oil, they have tar. They have tar. You have to melt it. And you know where it gets melted? In a refinery. You know where? In Houston, Texas. So if you're an environmentalist, all that stuff, I'm going to talk to you about this with Texas. All that stuff is going up into, we do it. It's the only refinery in the world that can do it, because basically they have a lot of tar, and you have to melt it, and it's a dirty process. We have the sweetest, lightest, most beautiful stuff. It's not even believable. The only way to avoid this miserable fate for America is if Wisconsin and the entire Midwest turn, and I mean turn out in record numbers. We need, and I hate to use this word because they should have never done it with respect to COVID. They should have never done it. But for this, we need a mandate. They shouldn't have done it with COVID. Everybody that did it should be ashamed of themselves, what they did. But we need a mandate in the vote, and we're going to get it. I actually think we're going to have numbers like has maybe never been seen before. You know, last time in 2020, we got more votes by far, by millions, than any sitting president in the history of the United States. Think of it. It's unbelievable.